Welcome to Arnie's Class Podcast. I'm Arnie Aniel. I'm an HR development consultant, an international public speaker, a workshop facilitator, a coach, and an educator. Life is a great opportunity, and we all learn life lessons every day. This podcast is all about those lessons. Lessons like gratitude, confidence, happiness, mindset, and a lot more. Learning without action is information. Learning with action is transformation. Join me, learn, and transform yourself into a better you. Welcome, life mates, for a new episode of Annie's Class. In this episode, I'm going to talk with my guest about his book, and the book is called Flying Over the Rainbow. According to him, rainbow is something that we dream about. It's about our career, education, or relationship. He's going to share with us some of the contents of the book, specifically about leadership and relationship. But whether you're a leader or not, I'm sure you're going to learn a lot from what he's going to share with us. And of course, relationship is something that we are all in. Relationship doesn't mean to be intimate relationship. Relationship with your family members, relationship with your friends, and of course, relationship in the workplaces. He's going to share with us what can we do as leaders in order to become more effective in what we do at the moment. And how can we have that harmonious relationships with the people around us? I'm sure we are going to learn something from this episode that we can have our wings that will be able to allow us to fly over the rainbow. Life mates, listen and learn. Life mates, welcome to another new episode of Arnie's Class. And my special guest for this episode is from South Africa. He is a thought leader, a professional speaker, a strategist, an economist, a social disruptor, and an author of the book Flying Over the Rainbow. Please welcome Valentine Muradzikwa. Valentine, welcome to Arnie's Class.
Thank you, Annie, and good afternoon, evening, morning to the virtual audience. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be part of this program. Thank you.
Thank you so much for saying yes, because to share, especially your book, is going to be a benefit not only for myself, but of course to all the listeners. So let's start. Valentine, let's talk about your book, Flying Over the Rainbow. What is the book all about?
Flying Over the Rainbow, it's a book which helps people to unlock their innate God-given potential. It brings to the fore the issue of a rainbow as an illustrative concept, where we are saying a rainbow almost appears as an elusive point where each and every person thrives to, wants to, and dreams of reaching. But then the question is, how do we get to that point? If it's from a career perspective, this is where you have reached the apex of the corporate ladder. You have reached that level of self-actualization and you are there just to leave a legacy. If it's from a relationship point of view, this is where you have reached a point of contentedness, fulfillment, and satisfaction in the relationship. So the book gives us a prescription on how we can not only reach this almost elusive point, but be able as leaders, as individuals, as leaders in the communities, in the business world, how we can actually not only be able to reach it, but surpass it. So that's the core of the book. It's on leadership, on personal development, on motivation, all the concepts that help us to become better individuals.
Wow. Sounds very interesting. It sounds like all the topics that people really want, especially during this time. So probably we can start with the leadership. Yes. So you said the book will give us the prescription on how we can reach the optimum level of our performance. So for leaders, how do how can they reach that point that yes, I'm really performing at my best? So
Mm.
how can you help the leaders to reach that level?
I think the most important thing before we even come up with a solution and answer with a way of doing something is first for us to understand the challenges that we'll be facing as leaders. And as a leader, it is first important that we give the proper diagnosis of the challenge that we are facing or areas that we feel we need development in. So the book gives a step-by-step process on how one can actually do this. And one of the things it talks about is the ability to identify where one is going as a leader and how we can be able to map a way. And it gives some key concepts, setting clear goals, having an action plan, having a time frame, and all those concepts help us as leaders to effectively operate and fulfill, be it personal goals or corporate goals.
So goal is one of the things that leaders should have, because you mentioned that twice, having goals.
Yes, yes. So goals, I know it's almost like a cliche where people say at the beginning of the year, you need to set clear goals, smart goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic. It is important to set a goal because it gives you perspective. It puts your wishes and dreams into light. And what the book explains is that if a ship goes on a journey without any clear point of destination that it's reaching, it will just be going on and on and on and on and on. There is no fulfillment, there is no satisfaction, there is no sense of accomplishment. So by having a clear set of goals, it helps to map one's way in terms of direction. Where are you going? What do you want to do? From a personal perspective, from a leadership perspective, what is my goal as an individual or as a leader?
Since we mentioned this, and as I said, we start with leadership, how will you define leadership, Valentine? Or who is a leader for you?
A leader, thank you for such an amazing question. A leader is anyone who is in a position of influence. And the leadership starts from even the homes that we come from. When you're at your home, Annie, you would realize that the family looks up to you for leadership. Your siblings or your children or your relatives, they look up to you for leadership. Leadership goes a step further from the home context into the community. You would find that you might find yourself being given community roles or being part of certain projects that are taking place in your community. That's leadership. Leadership goes further into our professional life, into the corporate world, where, for instance, you might find yourself actually being a team leader or being given a task where you are actually helping a group of people to ensure that you attain the set goal or the main target in terms of a project that you're working on. So leadership is a broad concept, and a leader will simply define it as any individual who has people following them. This may be consciously or unconsciously. So you might be a leader by default, or you can be a leader by authority that is being appointed in an organization.
Nice and very clear. So Valentine, with that definition of leaders or leadership, what characters do you think, or if I may say qualifications, that a leader should have in order for them to be effective?
Yes, that's a very good question, Annie. For a leader to be effective, one of the most important things that one has to have is a clear vision. That's what the book outlines in the second chapter to say, where are you going as a leader? And vision is what gives direction. Imagine you pack your bags, you go to the train station or the bus station or even to the plane. And when you get there, you tell the person selling the ticket that I want to go somewhere, but I don't know where. I'm
Yeah, it reminds me of the movie, what's the movie with the cat, you know,
with the,
with the
with
cat,
the
the
cats.
movie. Yes. I forgot the name of the
Uh,
movie. The girl who's like on a cross path and then asking the cat, which path should I
where
go?
is
Yeah, it depends
yes,
where you want to go. Yes, that's right.
yes, yes. So a vision gives us a not only a sense of direction, but it actually maps a way for us on how we are going to reach the target. So I go to the airport and I tell them, look, I want to go to Barbados. I want to go to Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. That's my vision. This is where I want to go. And from there, once a leader has a vision, then you then need to follow certain steps on how you're going to get there. How do I get there? So the first, as a leader, the first thing you need to understand or to make your people understand is, where are we going as a team? Where are we going as a family? Where are we going as friends? What is within the context of our relationship, where are we going?
So a clear vision is a must.
It's a must. And this is what the book also outlines, and it gives actually case studies of leaders we have been able to clear set visions. For instance, people like Jack Ma, Alibaba.com, people like Richard Branson, the Virgin brand,
Yes.
all the Steve Jobs, Apple. So all these were leaders who were visionaries. They were able to make the companies, the customers, see where they want to go as an organization. And hence, they've been effective as leaders in their different areas of specialty.
Nice. So that's the first qualification or characteristic of a leader. So a
Yes.
visionary. Can you give us
Yes.
one or two more?
Yes, is obviously the second one is having an action plan. You then need, as a leader, to say, okay, we want to improve. For instance, we want to increase our customer base. And how are we going to do that? People, they need a step-by-step process on how one is going to do it. That's why it's important then that the vision has to be clear, not only to yourself as the leader, but to the people as well. People need to know, okay, we want to be the first leaders in terms of space tourism, Richard Branson. And
Yes.
everyone understands that, wow, okay, we are leading space tourism, and this is where we are going. The Vision brand, this is where it's moving forward to. So you then need to have an action plan, which you communicate to the people, and the people will understand what you want to do, how you want to do it. And the other thing is to also have a time frame. That's the when you intend to achieve this. So you need to have, number one, clear set of goals. Secondly, you need to have an action plan and, of course, a time frame of execution. Imagine if we are saying, if Richard Branson that it just dreamt that, oh, we want to go to space, but we're not sure when we're gonna go. Or
Will it take 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years?
10 years or 15 years, or we can even see SpaceX, Elon Musk, they've got time frames to say by this and that, this and this set time, this is what we aim to achieve. And this helps to put a sense of urgency in whatever vision that you are chasing as a leader. So a leader, you need to have clear goals for the people that you're leading. You also need to have an action plan on how you intend to achieve those goals. And you need to have a time frame which helps you in terms of efficiency and execution.
Thank you so much. Very clear and if I may say that again, so there should be a vision and then an action plan, and of course a time frame. When are we going to execute or implement those plans in order to
Yes.
achieve the vision? So what do you think are the challenges of leaders, especially now in this challenging time of pandemic? Because pandemic has changed many aspects of work. Like nowadays, a lot of people are working on a hybrid team. They don't work in the same place or the same space. So what are the
Yes.
challenges and how can they overcome those challenges?
Yes. So leadership in itself is quite complicated. And what makes it so complicated is the almost a state of flux that leaders always find themselves in. And this has actually been more magnified now with this COVID environment, where you as a leader hear the blueprint on how you're going to achieve the corporate goals. And you wake up in the morning, there is a pandemic ravaging the world, your employees can't come to work, you can't have those strategic meetings in person that you were used to. Suddenly you realize you have been pushed into a totally uncharted new territory, the virtual environment. So the challenges that leaders face, especially nowadays, number one, is the ability to be versatile, the ability to adapt, to change. In the book, it gives an example of a chameleon to say,
Oh,
a
yes.
chameleon, yes, a chameleon, if you get in the forest and you see thick green trees, you might actually touch it thinking it's a branch, yet it's a chameleon.
Yeah.
Yet if you go in a different environment with flowers, brownish flowers, you might actually touch it thinking it's a flower, yet it's a chameleon.
Mm.
So that ability to adapt and adopt is very key in terms of solving the challenge of actually coming up with new and better innovative ways of doing things. The other challenge that leaders face is the ability to inspire, motivate your team. It's a big challenge. The COVID environment is actually, put a spotlight on this, where now as a leader, you find yourself, you are faced with a situation where you no longer see your employees face to face, but
That's
you
right.
still need them. Yes, you still need to ensure that they are in line with how you are thinking, that the inputs, the productivity is as good as when you would see them on a day-to-day basis. So the ability to motivate teams, the ability to inspire peak performance in teams is one of the challenges that actually the modern leader is facing. And how one can actually deal with that is, again, the number one, the ability to communicate with your team members. You need to be able to communicate in terms of your vision, in terms, again, of the goals. And communication is at different levels. And as a leader, you need to be able to understand that there is also interpersonal communication where you show concern, interest with regards to the people that you are leading. Imagine you're at home and probably your child comes and tells you, or the child comes and crying that the teacher did them at school, and you don't take time to listen to the child's problem. You would find that the child will even become more angry, agitated, and even irritate you all the more. And this is exactly the same principle when it comes to a corporate perspective, where you don't understand the people you're leading. The situation becomes almost toxic to both yourself and the people that you are leading. So that's another challenge that we are facing, especially in these trying times of a virtual environment of COVID-19. Their leaders are facing a challenge of how can I inspire, motivate my team for them to be as productive as they were, or for me actually to feel that they have been as productive as they should. And one way of dealing with that is the ability to communicate effectively as a leader. You also need to back to the basics, having those daily time management routines, planning, explaining to the team the importance of, nowadays we actually realize how important every second is, even though you're working from home. And you'd find that I was actually talking to someone recently. They were telling me that, I've actually realized that I think I work harder at home than I did at the office. So,
Totally. Yes.
yes. So as a leader, the book actually explains that as a leader, you need to also be able to explain to your team that busyness does not necessarily mean effectiveness. And it is how we are turning each and every second in terms of output as an organization. How are we creating shareholder value maximization as a concept or as a principle? So that's another challenge that leaders are facing. How do I motivate? How do I inspire my team during these trying times? Also, another challenge that we are facing as leaders in the communities, in the corporate world, is how to strategically position ourselves in the times that we find ourselves in. How do we ensure that we do not miss an opportunity that might come to us? And how do we also ensure that we embrace whatever opportunities we already have and actually grow and help the brand to grow as a business? So positioning for prosperity, the book explains the concept of positioning for prosperity. How can we strategically position ourselves as leaders, and how can we make sure that our team understands our strategic position as an organization?
Thank you so much for that very clear explanation. So, Valentine, we already defined what is a leader or what is leadership. You mentioned about what leaders are supposed to do, like having the vision, being a visionary, the action plans, and then the time frame. And then you also shared with us what are the challenges and how to overcome the challenges during these trying times of pandemic. Now, you mentioned in the book that you said that if they're going to read the book, they'll be able to find a way on how to tap on their potential and to really perform at their best. So what is it? If you can share at least one before I ask you further on the second topic that I want to ask, which is also in your book. So what is it that leaders can do in order to become at their best?
At their best. Again, we go back to the basics. Clear goal setting. I call it in the book seeing the invisible and helping your team to see the invisible.
See themselves visible as leaders.
Yes, see the invisible, to say the invisible being that elusive point that we want to reach as an organization, being that point of fulfillment from a family perspective, from a community perspective, a societal perspective. Seeing the invisible means being able, as individuals, me as a leader, being able to communicate to my team actually what we want to do. And that's all part of goal setting. So one of the ways is the ability to set clear cut goals and helping your team to see the invisible. You'd find that one of the most important things that as a leader you need is a buy-in from the people that you are leading.
Yes, I totally agree on that.
Yes. If the people that you are leading do not follow you, and there are reasons why they might not follow you. I remember John Maxwell talks of that. If you are leading and there's no one following you, then you are just walking around. So as a leader, and there's a reason why people you might think you are leading, but people are actually not following you. Number one would be they don't understand what you intend to do or what you want to do as an organization. And people just come to work, log on to meetings for the paycheck, but they really don't understand the context of the vision, the context of the meetings that we have on a day-to-day basis. So one way, again, of being able to, effectively have buy-in from the team is for you to make them understand your vision, where you're going as a leader, where you want to take the organization, or where you want their own personal lives to go at the end of a specific time.
If I can summarize that, Valentine, what you're saying is make sure that the leader has very clear goals, and at the same time, to see what is invisible, but at the same time, they have the ability to make the people who follow them to see what they see. Because or else
Yes.
they have different points of view, and then probably the leader is going straight, but the followers are going to the right and to the left. And then when you look behind, no one is there.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. I always, the book brings in different case studies. For instance, the story of Neil Armstrong and how we launched men into the moon.
Yes.
I can imagine Neil Armstrong having a conversation maybe at home with his wife saying, you know, I really want to go to that small ball up there in the sky. And I'm sure people will be like, huh, now you're losing your mind. But the more you was able, and the team, the NASA team and everyone, they were able to communicate the intention. Even the government invested in the project, and hence we're able to, the country and the world were able to, you know, achieve almost an unimaginable feat, which is 1967, one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind on the moon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another part of this interview, which I want to ask, is because you mentioned that. Thank you very much for that part of the leadership. Now, because in any role, or especially in leadership, relationship is very important.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about relationship, because you
Yes.
mentioned that is also a part of your book, Valentine.
Yes. So the book explains a concept, what we call relational capital. And it illustrates this concept by actually a practical example of salt. Salt, many of us have been to a restaurant. One of the common things that you'd find on a table is salt. And salt is actually made up of two elements scientifically, which is sodium and chlorine. Now, if you take these elements separately or independently, they are actually very poisonous to human health. You will die. But once these two are combined, they give us the flavor of the world. That's the power of relationships. Relationships bring out the best in us. Relationships help us to not only self-actualize, but actually to impact the community in a positive way. And relational capital is the new thing. Relational capital, 3/4 of the things that you get in life as an individual, as an organization, it is through your network. The network, and it's all about relationships. So the book explains the importance of building the right networks, appreciating people, and ensuring that we build ladders along the way that will help us in terms of achieving our personal goals as well as the corporate goals that we intend.
Yes. So if I may continue, I would like to ask further on relationships in the corporate world.
Yes.
Since you mentioned, because we already started with the leadership. So how would you describe as an effective relationship or a harmonious relationship between a leader and his followers or her followers?
Yes. So a harmonious relationship has to have guidelines. The first thing a harmonious relationship does is each and every one of the parties in the relationship understands their role in the relationship. So as a leader, you must then understand and know that you are in this particular position because there's a job which needs to be done. There's a target which needs to be reached. And also the employee should understand that they are in this organization, this company, because there's also a job which needs to be done. And that my duty is to ensure that I do A, B, C, D. So the having clear-cut frameworks in terms of the extent of the relationship helps to iron out a whole lot of things. And one of the most important things from an organizational setup is conflict. Conflict is inevitable, but it is also very important because it helps us to be better, perform better, and at the end of the day, make the organization prosperous.
Yes, I totally agree with that, because conflict, of course, if we can avoid, we can avoid, but it's inevitable. Conflicts will
Yeah.
always be there because we are different and at the same time we are similar. As a follow-up on that, what do you think are the elements of the relationship between leaders and the followers in order to make it successful, in order to work together, in order to achieve results? Like, because normally we hear in intimate relationship, communication
Yeah.
should be there, trust, and all those kind of elements. So how about in a corporate world?
Right. So in a corporate world, one of the most important thing that most organizations do is to have a job description or job specification for each of the different roles. And it is very important that as leaders, we understand our job specification, and also the employees, the juniors, also understand the job specification. That helps in terms of clearing any misunderstandings, misconceptions with regards to the relationship. So I would then say for a leader to be effective in terms of managing the relationship is also making sure that the employee understands their contribution, the expectance, what the organization expects them to fulfill. And this is very important because, you know, expectation and reality, the difference between the two can lead up to a situation of frustration, or it can lead to a situation of exhilaration where someone is doing more than what he was actually expected.
That's right. Because sometimes the gap between expectation and reality is huge, that
Yes.
in the end, someone has to leave. It's either the
Yeah.
leader resigns or the employee
Yes.
resigns. So because with this, as I said, the elements. So you said one is a clear job description or clear expectations. And sometimes the expectations are not clearly verbalized. So
Yes.
you do
Yeah.
something and then you don't know that is actually there are their expectations. So aside from
Yeah.
having a job description, what else can we put there in order to make that relationship effective?
Okay. So the next thing then is to be able to plan together as a team, or to communicate the plans that the leader has to the team. This will help both parties to understand the guideline in terms of how they are operating. So if we have a plan in place to say, okay, so our plan is we want to improve productivity, we want to boost the number of units we are making per week from, for instance, 20 units to 30 units. And how are we going to do that? We are going to get new machines with the support of our finance department. They're going to get a state-of-the-art machine, and that means our rate of output is going to be increased or much better. So it's about planning together as a team and ensuring that you're all on the same page, ensuring that you're all on the same page. I think that's one of the book talks of the dangers of missed opportunities. And the dangers of missed opportunities is where people are operating just below their potential, just below the peak performance level. And this space between what they are doing currently and what they can actually do is actually a very huge, a negative thing that can affect an organization. And this difference can actually be expressed in terms of lost revenue. It can be explained in terms of continuous conflict in the organization and high labor turnover. All those things, it is because of if there is that difference between what the people can actually do vis-a-vis what they are doing is on a day-to-day basis. So as a leader, our other function is to manage not only the productivity levels, but also, like, we go back to the issue of relationships, how we are communicating with the subordinates, how we are communicating with the employees. It's all about getting the buy-in from them. And depending with the situation, some situations there's no need to micromanage your subordinates or your employees. Some situations you need to be time and again, especially with this virtual environment. After 30 minutes, you have check-in meetings, or after 2 hours, feedback reports, all those things, just to ensure that you're all on the same page and you're all driving towards the same intention.
Yes, you're going to the same direction as a team.
Yes.
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 You mentioned about the gap between what the people can actually really do and then what they're performing at the moment. So how can we
Yes.
close that gap that these people can really tap on their potentials and perform at the peak of what can they actually do?
So in this gap, it can actually be closed by simple management principles, simple leadership principles. This is where now, as a leader, you are wearing many hats. You empathize with your team. You first need to understand what could be the challenge why we are not operating at the level that we're supposed to be operating at, and how best can we overcome this challenge. So getting the buy-in from the people involves you engaging them, communicating with them, trying to understand their problems and how the organization can actually be able to assist. And it goes again to this concept of a leader should be able to communicate. A leader should be empathetic. You must put yourself again in the same shoes of the team for you to understand their perspective and whatever challenges that they are facing. So the gap between what the team is doing currently and what they can actually do can simply be closed, or can simply be dealt with simple leadership principles. Leadership principles where you ensure that the people buy into the vision, you provide the resources, the support, and you empathize as well as a leader. You put yourself in their shoes. And at the end of the day, where you have a harmonious work environment, where everyone is chasing the same goal, you'd find that productivity improves. And as a leader, you feel content, satisfied, and actually you are able to achieve whatever personal goals, professional goals that you have.
But what advice can you give? Because we mentioned about the relationship in the corporate world, and I believe it can also mirror the relationship outside of the corporate world. But once relationship has been affected by problems or conflicts, how can we
Yeah.
fix relationships, especially if the trust is not there anymore?
Yes, yes. So you then understand that relationship management is actually a key principle. And one of the things that helps in relationship management is to be in touch with reality as a leader. And how do you become in touch with the reality as a leader? It is actually, at one point, to actually put yourself in the shoes of the subordinates by doing what they're actually doing. We do know that history has been littered with excellent leaders. For instance, look at people like Jack Welch from General Electric and how they, built that small organization into a global force.
That's right.
And yes, and how they've been able to do that, it's all about the leader being in touch with reality, with how your subordinates feel about the situation. You need to be in the mining shaft for you to understand the work environment in the mine. If you're sitting in the boardroom, sitting in the office, and an employee tells you that, look, we feel like down in the mine shaft is too hot for us, the heads you are giving us are too big, they are wearing us down, you won't understand. But only when you also take the initiative to step into their shoes, literally, and walk their journey with them as well. So that's one of the ways you can actually as a leader effectively ensure buy-in, that is to walk in the shoes of the employees. And how do you do that? By doing what they are doing. We, even though people talk now of a virtual environment, but if I expect a report as a leader to be done, for instance, within 30 minutes, if I try to do it myself in 30 minutes. So we must be able to walk the talk, to do what we actually want the subordinates to be able to do
I
as
see.
leaders.
I see. So, Valentine, with that, you believe that if the relationship has been changed or because of conflicts and problems and no trust at all, you think that the relation can still be back into its original state of closeness?
Yes, yes. So trust is a very fragile thing from a relationship perspective. It takes a lot of time to build trust, and it can take just a few seconds to destroy the same trust. So as leaders, where we at times find ourselves in situations where trust has been broken, and depending with the circumstances, at times we might need to swallow the pill ourselves as leaders, and where we have made a mistake and
Yes.
actually own up to the team, you realize that actually the team will have way big respect for you than where you try to cover up mistakes, you try to be defensive or to cover your position. So it's about being openness, and also empathetic and understanding where your subordinates or your team members are coming from. So where trust has been breached, it can be repaired. And one of the way of repairing trust is honesty. Engaging the team members honestly in an open and honest way without intimidation, threats, or things like that. And again, reminding them of the vision you have as a leader and where you want your department, your organization to go. So openness, honesty, those are the tools to ensure that where trust has been breached, we can be able to repair and patch up the broken pieces.
So we can still repair broken relationships.
Yes, definitely,
That's
definitely.
nice. Yes.
It just takes initiative from the parties involved. Yes.
We're almost done here with our interview, Valentine, but there's still one question that before I ask my standard questions with my guests, I want to ask you because we talk about leaders and then of course with the followers or subordinates. We talk about relationship and the relationship, of course, it's not only you. There's another party. But let's
Yeah.
talk about ourselves as individuals. Because
Mm.
I believe your book is about personal development. So,
Yes.
as individuals, before we can be leaders, before we can be in a relationship, what should we do in order to be ready for those things, for those work, for those relationships?
So in one of the chapters of the book, it talks, chapter 6, it talks about believing that you actually deserve. And that's a concept of self-belief. So before we even talk about engaging the team or inspire, personally, you need to believe in yourself as a leader. And the moment you believe in yourself and believe you deserve to be in that leadership position, the better you perform. The better your team actually starts believing in you, the better your confidence level become. And ultimately, this reflects all in the work that you do, in the quality and the outputs that you give as a leader. So you need to have a sense of self-belief, believing that you can do this, that you deserve to be in that leadership position, and that you have the right expertise to take the team to the promised land.
Self belief. Yes, because
Yes.
if you don't believe in yourself, don't expect others to believe in you.
Exactly. Well said. Well
Yeah.
said.
Yes. Valentine, what with all everything you've learned in life and you were able to write a book such as this Flying Over the Rainbow, what is the greatest lesson you've learned?
Wow, that's a very big question. Yes. The greatest lesson that I've actually learned is that there is nothing impossible for one as long as you believe in yourself. The book talks about a concept called against all odds, where there are situations, there are people who find themselves at the back of the race, at the back of the rat race. And at times it boggles the mind to say, okay, will I ever reach? Will I ever be? Will I? So, in a nutshell, it is the ability for a person, the concept to believe that against all odds, you can rise from whatever situation that you face. And the book actually gives as well different corporate case studies and how those who believed against all odds were able to remain relevant and significant to the times. And those who succumbed to the vice around, those who succumbed to the change environment, how we suddenly woke up in the morning and they no longer exist. So the book also gives a prescription in terms of corporate success stories and also corporate failures. For instance, who does not know of BlackBerry? Who does not know of
Course.
Nokia?
Yes. And where are they now?
And where are they now? They just woke up and things have changed. The tide had changed. So against all odds, as a leader, you need to have the self-belief that you can rise from any situation. And the book uses quite a number of sporting illustrations because I believe peak performance in humans is well illustrated from a sporting perspective as well. And how, for instance, people like Muhammad Ali or even people like Hussein Bolt, at times they would find themselves in very trying situations, but against all odds, they would always, rise above the circumstances.
Yes.
Yes.
Nice. It's a big question, but you were able to answer that question with a big answer. Thank you very much, Valentine. Another one is because we make decisions, and I believe on a daily basis, we make choices, we make decisions. What decision you've made in the past that has an impact of who you are now?
Yes. Wow, that's a very deep question. I've made quite a number of decisions in my life, but one of the most important decisions that I say I've made is to decide to be at my best at all times. That has been very, very helpful and has been key in terms of helping me to be a success from a personal and a professional perspective. That conscious decision to say, whatever I do it at my best. I do it with the utmost devotion, commitment, precision, and as well as the best. I'll put my best into any activity that I'm doing. That decision has helped me a lot in terms of my productivity. It's a decision that has helped me a lot in terms of becoming a better person, becoming a better leader, a better, I'm trying to find the right word, a better, not only leader, but I'd say a better communicator as well. I've said to myself, anything that I do, I need to be at my best. And I need to be able to show the people that at any point in time, no matter the circumstances or situation, I give my all into any task, any endeavor. And that has been the greatest lesson for me. And I believe it's a lesson which, if someone embraces, can change your life. People always say, this guy, no matter how you try to put him down, no matter how much work you load on him, he's always jovial and he always tries, he gives it his all. And before you know it, the universe conspires and is there to help you achieve your set goals.
Yes. And if you give your best, I think the universe will also give you the best things in return.
Exactly. That's true. That's
Yes.
true.
Valentine, my last question. I know you already, is this your first book, Flying Over the Rainbow? Is this your first book that you
It
wrote?
was my first book, yeah. But
Wow.
I also have another book which will be coming out very soon. And yeah, you're going to see it being advertised again on Amazon. And yeah, so this one, the second book, was born out of this COVID environment.
Oh, wow.
And I believe it's got a very significant and relevant message for our time.
Let's say you're going to have your third book, and your third book is about your life.
Yes.
You as Valentine. What will be the title for that book? And what will be the contents? What will be the book like? So it's about
Wow.
you. It's about your life.
It's about me.
Yes.
I think I would like to draw from one of the Hollywood actors, Will Smith, who said the best things in life are on the other side of fear. So if I am to come up with another book, definitely it will be how one can overcome fear in our lives, this false evidence appearing real, because it
Yes,
is
that's
one of
right.
the biggest impediment in terms of progress, development. There are so many things that people will never attempt to do, not because they can't do it, but it's
But
because
because
they
of the
are afraid.
fears. Yes.
Yes, the fear is just to start. So I would like to demystify those concepts of what makes us so afraid and how actually fear can negatively affect our performance as individuals, our performance as an organization, and what we can do to overcome that fear.
Nice. I'll be the first one to buy that book. So make
Thank you
sure
so
that
much.
will be your third book.
Thank
Valentine,
you.
thank you so much for sharing what you've written in your book. And before I let you go, if people wants to reach you or wants to buy your book, how can they buy and reach you?
Okay, so if you want to buy the book, it's on Amazon and you can simply buy it online. It's available. If you also want a hard copy, or if you want it emailed to you, or whatever methods, now people are talking of so many methods, feel free to reach me on my email address, which is valentine.muradzikwa1@gmail.com. Or you can simply place an order on orders@flyovertherainbow@gmail.com.
Wow. Listening to all what you have shared, the contents of the book, it seems like reading the book will give us the wings to fly over the rainbow.
Definitely.
I'm going to get a copy of that book,
Yes.
Valentine, one of these days. And again, thank you so much for your time, because I believe sharing what you've written is something that everyone can learn from. And thank you so much. And to my life mates, if you like this episode, please share it with your families and friends so they can learn as well from this episode. Once again, thank you so much, Valentine. Happy New Year and all the best for 2022.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to your virtual audience.
Thank you very much.